There are up to 10,000 active cults in America at this time. Luckily, they're not all Jonestown or Branch Davidian type of cults, but it doesn't mean that they are good. There are 4 different types of cults: the Doomsday Cult, the Religious Cult, the Political Cult, and the SEX Cult. Sometimes they overlap with each other and become bigger cults, I guess. In 1984, in Rulo, Nebraska, one of these cults formed. Hello, I'm Sean, and twice a week I research and tell you about true crimes. If you are new here, then welcome. And if you're a returner, then welcome back. It's nice to see you again. That's a great shirt you're wearing. If you're not subscribed, please do so because it helps me out. You'll stay up to date with my videos and possibly more. I don't have really anything for an introduction, so let's just get on with today's story about Michael Ryan and his cult in Rulo, Nebraska. Now, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. It's Rulo. I'm thinking it's Rulo. Rulo. I'm just going to call it Rulo. If I pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry. Nebraska seems to have a lot of towns that are spelled one way and pronounced a totally different way. It is what it is, I guess. So Rulo is located in the southeastern corner of Nebraska along the Missouri River. It's a quiet farming community, but in 1984, a stain ruined the town for years. Michael Ryan took over a defunct 80-acre farm right outside of Rulo. It was owned by Richard Stice. Michael was a white supremacist and self-proclaimed archangel. He convinced a group of people to follow him. More than 25 people, most of which were children, moved out to the farm. They left their former lives behind. Ryan followed the teachings of Reverend James Wickstrom and referred to God as Yahweh. Now, this is, I looked and looked, and I don't think this is associated with the Yahweh cult. But I'm not positive. And Wickstrom himself was a piece of work. Giant white supremacist that went around preaching to. I might end up doing him sometime. Yeah, his teachings were really messed up. At the farm, Ryan taught his followers about the supremacy of the white race, anti-Semitism, homophobia, and the hatred for race traitors. He hated drug addiction and non-European descendant Americans also. He taught about the distrust of the government and law enforcement, and he stated that the white race was chosen by God, and all others were chosen by Satan. So, he's hitting that doomsday, anti-government, religious, political cult. I mean, it's all meshed in there. And he delves a little bit more into the SEX too later. A substantial portion of his followers were farmers from the area that had lost money due to the economy and was eager to point at others about their failings. He had followers burgle, I think that's the burgle, commit burglary around the area, and they would turn around and sell the items to support the family. They were also buying up lots and lots of weapons, and they were stockpiling them for the imminent Armageddon and race war that was coming. Ryan claimed that Yahweh would talk to him. Now, Ryan was married. He was married to Ruth Ryan, uh, but also married 4 of his members. And 3 of these women were already married. So it's one of those, I'm going to marry you. You can be married too, but you're my wife also. Each of the men in the cult were assigned a military rank. Ryan's son Dennis was one of those men. He was only 15 at the time. The other men on the farm were the farm owner Rick Stice, James Thim, Tim Haverkamp, David Andres, and James Haverkamp. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing all those names right. Now, I know I normally show pictures, and I searched. I could not find pictures of the majority of these people. So I do apologize for that. In 1985, Tim, I think it's Tim Stice and Stice's 5-year-old son Luke had found themselves on the wrong side of Yahweh's liking. The 3 of them were demoted by Ryan to be slaves. It was a slave status. That's what he put them down to. They were moved to a separate house, and at this house they were abused physically, psychologically, and sexually. They forced the 3 of them to perform on each other, and even a goat. They forced Stice to do things to his son, and I'm not getting into that at all. Apparently, at one point, Ryan shot Luke in the arm. He also used him as an ashtray. And he would force them to eat all their food off the floor. In March, Rick Stice escaped from the farm when Ryan was away. He returned weeks later because he feared for his son and the retribution that was happening to him. And the treatment of the 3 of them just got worse after that. They were forced to sleep on the porch. At times, they were chained to the porch. Yeah. When they went outside, they were guarded by the other members of the cult. They wanted to make sure that they weren't going to run away anymore. One day, Ryan was pissed off and shoved Luke really hard in a fit of anger. Now, there's multiple accounts. One says that he shoved him. One that he says that he just started beating on the kid. I know it's probably the latter, but I don't want to think about it that way. So the 5-year-old tumbled and struck his head. He lost consciousness. Now, Ryan didn't let them seek medical attention for the kid. And later that night, he died. Ryan then had his father, Rick, dig a grave for Luke and bury him on the farm in an unmarked grave, mind you. The only picture I found of Luke was on his proper gravestone that he received after this whole ordeal. And I'm sorry, that's the only picture I can find of the kid, and I am really sorry for what happened to Luke. That is awful, and Ryan is a piece of crap. The death of his son was Rick's last straw. I mean, all the other things, sex and doing it with a goat and all this other stuff, but killing your son was the last straw. In April, he escaped from the farm, and this time he never returned. This was not a good thing for James them. The abuse he suffered after Rick left was terrible, and it hit an apex on April 28th, 1985. Rick accused James of being a blasphemous person toward Yahweh and stated that he was trying to poison the group. He stated that James actually put household cleaner on a turkey that was in the fridge. He said that James was trying to kill the group, so as punishment, he made James eat the whole turkey. Um, he didn't poison it, but he got a turkey at least. Ryan then initiated a brutal discipline on James. They took him to the barn, and over a 2-day period, they punished him. It's really, reading it was really difficult, and I am trying to tiptoe around it so that I'm not fully there. So there is possible trigger warnings, but I'm going to try to describe it as kindly as I can. So the men took turns assaulting James. They shoved a shovel handle into his anus. They did this so many times and so often that it ended up puncturing his bowels. They ended up whipping him repeatedly, and for some odd reason, Ryan shot off the fingertips of his left hand. So he was laying there in the barn naked and bound with baling wire. Ryan then broke one of James's arms. He took like a 2x4 or something and broke his arm. Then he had his son Dennis break James's left leg, and he told Timothy Haverkamp to break the right leg. Ryan then proceeded to show Timothy Haverkamp and Dennis how to skin a person on one of James's legs. Ryan ended up finishing this punishment with stomping on James's chest several times, breaking multiple ribs. James was finally shot in the head, and he died April 29th, 1985. His body was placed in a sleeping bag and was buried on the farm in an unmarked grave. On June 25th, John Andres and James Haverkamp were out stealing a sprayer rig. They got caught, got arrested. In jail, they talked and decided to tell the authorities what had been taking on out at the farm. The police searched the farm on August 17th and 18th. They located the bodies of Luke and James. They also located a large stockpile of weapons, ammo, and explosives. Ryan was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Dennis was charged with first-degree murder of James. Timothy Haverkamp testified against Ryan for the state, and he got second-degree murder for James. He was sentenced to 10 years to life and was released in 2009 after 23 years in prison. The state also had John Andres and James testify for them. They got lesser charges. They both were sentenced to 26 years in prison, but were released in 1998. Ryan was sentenced to death for James on October 16th, 1986, and after the appeals, uh, it was affirmed. So he appealed it, and they just kept saying, "No, no, no, you're still sentenced to death." But he was only charged for life in prison for Luke's death. Dennis Ryan, his 15-year-old son, was convicted of second-degree murder, and he was given a life sentence, but was released in 1997 after serving only 12 years. On May  14th, 2015, Michael Ryan died at the age of 66 from brain cancer. According to some sources, he died thinking that he was still following Yahweh's wishes the whole time. So he never rehabilitated at all. Dennis was informed that his dad was dying, and he had not spoken to him since they were arrested. Dennis said, and this is a quote, "Best for everybody, good riddance, flush him down the toilet for all I care." I don't know what to think about Dennis Ryan, but apparently he got married a year after he got out, and he is living a quiet life down in southern Kansas with his wife and kid. Um, he's like a truck driver or something like that. But he's done a couple interviews. But I mean, he's 15, listening to his dad. How brainwashed was he? I know that's not a condones anything, but if you keep growing up believing the crap, you know, it becomes real for you. So Ryan brainwashed these men and women into believing that he was a messenger of God. all, all while building an arsenal for either the Armageddon or a war with the government. In the beginning, I stated that there was 4 different cults. And I really do think that Ryan, like I said earlier, Ryan hit each and every single one. Uh, in this case, not only did Luke and James lose their lives, but those brainwashed in the cult have been forever changed because of this man. Even if they didn't do anything, or didn't get convicted, some of the women and other men that were on the property, what happened in 1985 and prior to that changed them. I don't know. It's just terrible. He said what they wanted to hear. They were poorly educated and believed his crap because that is what they needed to hear to follow him and to stand behind him and his terrible, terrible ideas about throwing over the government and anti-Semitism and racism and all this stuff. I mean, he was just a god-awful man. They committed crimes for him and were violent when asked to be. I mean, remember, the majority of the people on the farm stole just to get money, to sell the stuff for money to, live on. So they're all criminals in one way because of this one man telling them to do it. A person with that much power over others is a scary thing. Think for yourself. Stop believing what somebody else is telling you should be believing. Do what's right and respect others' differences. There's enough xenophobia in America as there is right now. And there's no reason to be. America was a melting pot. We're all mutts in America. Let it be that way. Who cares? And hating somebody for the color of their skin or their religion or their gender identity or things like that. It's just ridiculous. And unfortunately, there's a lot more people out there like Michael Ryan. They might not have killed people, they might have not committed the crimes that he did, but they're still convincing people to do their bidding and spreading the stupidity of the word. So I'll get off my soapbox. I'm not gonna bitch or moan or anything like that, even though I already have. But this was the story of Michael Ryan and the Rulo, Nebraska cult. Um, there's so many other ones out there. I mean, this was just the tip of the iceberg for cults. There are so many god awful cults out there, and I might cover more. Um, I know there's a couple other ones that are just terrible, and I don't think I could report on because I don't think I could do that to you, the audience, and I don't know if I could stomach some of the crap. Um, well, but thank you for your time. If you're not subscribed, please do so. It helps me out. It helps the community out. Give me a like, nice thumbs up. It helps my numbers. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. I love you all. See you next time. Bye.